If you know the difference between finance and commercial real estate and residential real estate, is that residential real estate is based on whoever the last person bought the closest house for. Commercial real estate is how financially productive the asset is. Once I learned about and studied and really internalized that and the consequences of it, it just occurred to me that I could take, time, resources, effort, money, whatever, and if I put it in the commercial space, I could have a positive impact. I could build something cool, and the better it is for people, the more lucrative it'd actually be anyway.
Yep.
So I got out of housing almost entirely and just into, more challenging, bigger, more difficult projects, but things that are intended to, and really this is the litmus test for if we're going to do a project or not, will it have a positive impact on the area? Is it something that's going to change a community for the better? And if the answer is yes, and I can see a financial pathway, then, we'll consider it.
Welcome to The Roll Call, the podcast where we dive into the roles that define us. I'm your host, John Glahn. On each episode, we explore the journeys of people discovering their true roles in life, business, and beyond. Get ready for inspiring conversations about finding purpose and authenticity. Let's roll the roll call. Welcome to the Roll Call podcast. I'm John Glahn. I have with me Ron Thomas, founder and owner of Rise Above Ventures and a few other ventures. And he is a friend of mine through Vistage, which we'll all get to know well. Been happy to have him on. I'm excited what he does locally here for his community. All are here and accounted for. Let's start the roll call.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So Ron, right? I think it's been a couple years since you've been in Vistage. I think probably.
Yeah, 2, 3.
2, 3,
like
yeah. And what I love and is interesting about Ron's story, and I'm probably maybe the only person that geeks out about it, but he didn't come out of the gates just jumping into business. He actually started as a professional BMX racer, which I think is cool as hell. And you're probably tired of talking about it, but can we start there, please?
Yeah.
Okay.
So plainly, I'm dumber than the average person at Vistage because I decided to take the most difficult path I could. No, I was just really into riding bikes as a kid. It was what I did for athletics for the most part. And I thought it would be, I got a job as a performer. I dropped out of college my first semester and went and got a job as a performer traveling. Very lucrative. I grossed like $7,000 that first year gross, which is okay if you're living on the floor and sleeping in your mom's house.
Yeah.
After a couple of years, I thought, well, man, this pays so well that I should start a business in this industry. So I actually had a background in like metal fabrication, machining and stuff. And the equipment that we used to put on these events when I was working for someone else was terrible. And I thought, well, if I could build more efficient equipment, then from the performer's perspective, everything could go better. Mm-hmm. So I propositioned the owner of the company that I was working for and said, hey, I know how to build this stuff. I'll do it for super cheap and it would really improve operations. And he laughed me out of the room, thought I was an idiot, and probably fair in some ways. So I spent my life savings at the time, $13,000, to build these portable ramps, and then started from there. Was really my first company. I think I was 19. And that was how I went into business for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you ever think you'd be a business owner, or is it like, you don't know what else you're going to do, or how do you think that actually came to be?
It always just occurred to me that if I put the same level of effort and dedication into doing something for myself, that there's no way I wouldn't be better off than if I went and did something for somebody else. So that was kind of the, pioneer mindset I guess I had from the beginning. And it was really no more complicated than that. And so I just thought, well, and when you're young and broke, you got nothing to lose. So it's like, well, why not shoot for the moon?
Right.
Yeah, that was kind of how I got into it. Now it's funny. So I've had a couple times in my life where I've gone through real challenging phases, which happens for everybody. And most recently was probably about 2017. But I had this moment where I'd build a resume and that's silly. I'd be the worst employee ever. Nobody would hire me. I've only ever worked for myself. That's just simply not an option. So I guess, find some other business and get into it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Because one, and we'll talk about where your actual business, and I didn't even give you a chance to explain what you actually do now. A lot of it is in real estate development and things like that in your hometown of Wyandotte and the surrounding areas. And I think what's really cool is, Dan Gilbert gets all the praise for all the things he's done for Detroit, but you're doing the same thing in Wyandotte, in the community of Wyandotte, and not just updating buildings. And I'll let you get into some of that, but you have a great eye that I think, again, aesthetically walking in, right? It's updating, like walking in your office, right? I was immediately, you know, you have a picture of you upside down, I think, on a BMX bike. And it's just like, again, for nerds like me that love physical activity and love and love people do crazy shit. I'm like, because you got to have a little screw loose to be doing that kind of stuff. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I'm sure you got hurt plenty of times trying to do those things way back when, which translates into a few other things that you do now. You're a licensed pilot. I mean, all kinds of cool things. And we'll come into a story of that after as well. But
Okay.
so I guess from that point, 17, is that when you jumped into the real estate stuff, or was that the?
Yeah, kind of. So I mentioned I used, my life savings of $13,000 to start an event business. And that's true. The other thing that I was considering at the time, and this was 2006 or 7, was getting into real estate. I wanted to buy a house and flip it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really know much about it at the time. But I looked around, and later on I went to college and studied economics. But at the time, the prevailing wisdom was that house prices go up and go up and go up, and they never stop. At the time, house prices were going up 8-9% a year, and people's wages were going up too, if that, especially locally in the Detroit area. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, this doesn't last very long. I didn't know what was gonna happen, but I decided to start that event business rather than buy a house and flip it. And then the property market crash happened a couple years later. By then, I was living in Pennsylvania studying economics, and I was like, okay, this all makes sense to me now. Mm-hmm. Which is why I moved back then in 2010 to Michigan after being away for a while, because houses were cheap. There was the foreclosure crisis going on. Mm-hmm. And my now wife and girlfriend and I bought our first property, again, using our combined life savings, fixed it up ourselves, ended up living there. And that's how I got started in real estate. That was 2010. Mm-hmm. But no, the event business I had, ultimately those, we would travel and we would go to schools mostly, sometimes other events, and put on performances. Fundraising companies would hire us. That was kind of the business model. We did tons of events, almost 1,000 a year, the multiple teams traveling, a lot of logistics. It's a pain in the ass, didn't really make much money, but had a big platform. Eventually I partnered with a guy that was in marketing. He worked for the Pistons and like sports teams. And we used that platform as a marketing arm that we then sold sponsorships to. The National Guard was a big one, mostly military, which paid 10 times as much. And all of a sudden, a large platform that didn't make anything became profitable. That lasted for a few years, but when that contract wound down is when I got out of the event business.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you did get to make a few bucks while you were at it.
Yeah, I did, ultimately.
In the event space.
And that's what got me started in real estate.
Right. And then now fast forward to the, I got to come up with a new word because I used mogul on another podcast.
Well, it's the wrong one in this instance anyway.
No, but really transitioning into your business now, which is again, it's for profit, mm-hmm. No question, but making an impact and doing it in a pretty cool way.
Yeah, so in the beginning when I started in real estate, this was simultaneous to the event business from like 2010 to say 17. It was something a lot of people did around here. I'd buy a foreclosed house, fix it up, rent it out. Mm-hmm. But what occurred to me, and if you know the difference between finance and commercial real estate and residential real estate, is that residential real estate is based on whoever the last person bought the closest house for. Commercial real estate is how financially productive the asset is. Once I learned about and studied and really internalized that and the consequences of it, it just occurred to me that I could take, time, resources, effort, money, whatever, and if I put it in the commercial space, I could have a positive impact. I could build something cool, and the better it is for people, the more lucrative it'd actually be anyway. Yep. So I got out of housing almost entirely and just into, more challenging, bigger, more difficult projects, but things that are intended to, and really this is the litmus test for if we're going to do a project or not. Will it have a positive impact on the area? Is it something that's going to change a community for the better? And if the answer is yes, and I can see a financial pathway, then we'll consider it.
Right. So, what kind of? Let's give some examples of what's impactful and still cash flow positive, because you're doing you're doing hold, right? Buy and hold, improve and hold for the most part, right?
For the most part, yeah. I don't. You always have an exit strategy. But I don't typically buy an asset with the intent of fixing it up and selling it immediately after. What I do is I look for problem properties that I can, that I can see the end in, and then, if I can put together the pieces to make it work, then I do it. One example is this project where 50 or 60% of the way done. It was a vacant school building. Coincidentally, I went to school there. It was elementary school. It was this beautiful stone building. It was vacant for 15 years. And this is in the city of Wyandotte. And the city was faced with the proposition of basically spend $2 million to tear it down and turn it into, 6 residential lots that are worth collectively 150 grand, or find some alternative use. The problem was that the building would cost more to renovate than the asset will be worth when it's done. Except for I was one of the first people in the state to put together a residential brownfield plan, because of a law that changed 2 years ago, which provided a tax incentive that was significant enough to justify doing the project. So it's 2 years ago I bought that property for $1. And I started construction about a year ago now, and it'll be done in about May of this year. And it's going to be multifamily residential with a public park and then 5 houses.
Wow. And the structure is still there? Or?
Structure's still there. Yeah, I was able to save the building. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's a cool, beautiful building, and that was part of the reason I wanted to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really cool example of. And you also, by the way, have you self-perform. Your general contractor is a good term, right? For
Correct.
What you're actually
Yeah.
doing. You're doing the work.
Yeah, we do general contracting for commercial work, but it's local, and half of the time it's for our own developments, and
Right.
then half the time it's for other people I know, their properties.
Right. And it's a really, really cool and interesting, right? The economic benefit to the community. I've heard some similar stories. Did the community welcome that? Or were people like, again, because you paid $1 or whatever, or was there backlash because of that, or foreseeing what could be?
No, and this is, I guess, the philosophy that I operate with often. But the building sat vacant for 15 years. I was maybe the third developer to come along and propose something. But the previous ones, this property is 4 acres. The building itself is 60,000 square foot, and it's in the middle of a nice residential neighborhood, walking distance to downtown. No commercial activity in the area. Other developers were going to come in and do age-restricted housing or something with a commercial component. None of that was welcome in the community, and that's ultimately why those developments never proceeded. So by the time I came about, all I did was listen to what the community wanted and then look for a path to producing it. It wasn't so much what do I want to impose on the neighborhood. It's like, well, what do people want to see here? Okay, can I make that make sense financially? And so that's what I did. I just proposed what they wanted, and so it was welcome with open arms.
Awesome. So, and talking about a handful of other things that I'm aware of, right? Your co-office space, which that's new to the area, right?
Yeah. So I have 3 buildings in that area that's what they are. They're like a mini WeWork, tailor fitted to our market, which is a smaller market. Oddly enough, the reason that started was because I bought my first commercial building. This is in 2017. And it's right downtown Wyandotte. It's where all the bars and restaurants are. I bought it because I would like to work there, and I needed to expand. I was working on my house at the time, and I needed to have more space for people that were going to help service my government contracts for events, right?
Oh.
So I buy this building, intending to renovate it that way, and then that whole business went away because we didn't win the contract that we should have, which is a whole story we could fill a podcast with. But anyway, so now I'm like, I have this building, and no real use for it. and at the time I was wanting to get into real estate full time anyway. So I thought, well, I need an office suite. I need a conference room on occasion. I wonder if other people would too. The challenge is that was a smaller building, so it's really one of scale. So you go to a WeWork and it can have an office person there full time and it's large. I had to figure out a model that would work in a smaller community. So I just built it and tried it out. And by the day that we were finished construction, it was filled. It was no vacancy at all. Which is why I thought maybe there's some demand here for that kind of a product in this area. So a year after that, I opened up another one. There's a 24,000 square foot building. It's a lot larger. And same thing. That one's done, really well since the day I finished it.
Wow. Awesome. And gosh, even going further, right? A restaurant, I remember you redid, I think the Vault, right? Is that what
The Vault's in that, the building I just mentioned.
Yeah.
There's another, restaurant I'm partners in. This one's far different. So beginning of last year, me and 2 other guys bought a marina. It's called Humbug. And it's got a restaurant named JP's Waterfront. So it's right on the water where Detroit River meets Lake Erie. It's an awesome spot. It's 25 acres, 100,000 square foot of buildings, like 500 some boat slips, et cetera. But that one was a large marina that was run down and not doing well. Then the people that we bought it from built a restaurant and created a management nightmare for themselves. It's this big, complicated property, a lot of revenue streams, a lot of stuff to manage. And they were kind of mom and pop operators that created a monster. So it did well, but they didn't, manage their books correctly. Like, this is the kind of place that private equity firms should be buying. But you just got Ron Thomas and his buddies from Wyandotte that got the opportunity because we knew what it was because we're from there. One of my partners manages restaurants. One of my partners works for me most of the time and manages our heavy construction operations. And then I'm like the business guy. And we thought we could solve the collective problems of the place that everybody else was scared of. So we bought it. And that's probably going to prove to be one of the better things I've ever done in my career. So, yeah.
Because you renovated the restaurant and it just you just opened it.
You're talking about a different restaurant. That one's called Latitudes.
Oh my gosh! I was thinking it was part of that one. Oh wow.
Yeah, no. That one we actually didn't touch the restaurant because it was new, but we reinvested like $1.5 million in the marina in the first year or so, just to make it a better place. And that's it's done well. Though what you're talking about is a place a lot of people in the Detroit area actually know of. It's called Portofino's, or it was. Yeah. Now it's called Latitudes. It's a 12,500 square foot another waterfront restaurant. This one's in Wyandotte, and it had deteriorated over time. And then me and two other guys, different guys, bought that last July, October. And we completely redeveloped that in about 6 months, and it opened in June of this year. Yeah.
And going well?
Yeah, I actually exited as soon as the construction was done.
Oh.
So my other two partners remain owners of it, and I left the group. I didn't have anything to offer, just strict management of a restaurant.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I mean, I eat chicken fingers, so what am I?
Love it. No, and that's actually like, and those are all the last few are like within the last couple of years, right?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned. That's kind of the challenge I face now. My biggest challenge day to day is that I have this, and then one other fairly larger development for me anyway that I've been working on for a long time, and all of like that kind of stuff sometimes takes years to plan. So years ago, I started planning these things, and then it all kind of hit at once. So now we're firing on all cylinders because we just have a lot of projects in the hopper that all happen to get greenlit, right, in the last few months.
Yeah. And so, because I recall, as you were trying to figure out how to get all these things done, like from the financial perspective of like, hey, not knowing how they were all gonna happen was like, hey, in many cases, right, in development, your money's tied up in the development, and so that's why, hence, I keep hearing the word partners, right? Is you got to be able to make those things happen, right?
Yeah, developments, can be a very profitable industry. It's very capital intensive, and because, like you said, you might invest several $1 million in a building or facility or whatever, and then it takes, once it's finished, it stabilizes and you get paid back. Or sometimes you just have capital in it for a long time. But yeah, I do often look for partners or bring in partners. Like some deals will bootstrap them, but the larger, more complex ones will bring in financial partners to to help do that for sure. Yeah.
Are you finding conventional banks to be helpful in any of that, or is it more
conventional banks for assets that need repositioned? You can do it, but it's challenging, right? It's a lot more burdensome than just a regular bank loan. Our typical structure is either buy something cash and then use our own capital or investor capital to fix it up and then go to a bank at the end, or use some sort of seller financing, land contracts, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But typically I know commercial banking with regard to real estate inside and out. Usually I won't even go to a bank until, the asset's complete or near complete, because I just know my life will be a lot easier if that's the case.
Yeah, because then it's an asset that's potentially producing money or whatever, and that's how you get your cash back to go to the next deal.
Exactly. Right? Yep.
It does fascinate me to you have to have a vision, right? Because I'm thinking of the one that's across the street from the vault. That was like a pretty heavy renovation. Remind me of
I
that.
think you're talking about the former City Hall building.
I think so, where it was
Yeah.
like you were doing some remediation. You were doing quite
Yep.
a bit.
Yep.
I think that was one of a more difficult one that you were endeavoring in, and I haven't even been back down there to see.
That one took like 3.5 years to plan. And we're just starting the reconstruction of it this month. It'll be done late next year. But to the point you were making initially, I'll often by myself, if I'm gonna take on a project, go there, way before I sign any paperwork or lock in anything, and just sit by myself and kind of like look at it and envision what it can be. Because, and to a point you made earlier, I think that, I only want to build a kind of place where you walk in and you feel like you want to be there. That's, kind of the modus operandi, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, just go there and it has to be welcoming, inviting. It has to be a place that feels cool. And if I don't see a path for that, because a lot of properties, in my opinion anyway, are just junk and could never be that, right?
Yeah.
But some can, and that's if I don't have that vision, then I won't do it. And then after that comes, okay, well, what will it be worth after I do whatever I'm going to do? What's it going to take to get us there? Is there enough profit involved to make it worth the trouble?
Yeah. So remind me what you're doing with that, because I think you were taking, if I recall, I think there was some remediation involved. Like you were really restructuring it. Where most places, I believe you keep the gut, you keep the building itself. The ones that I've been a part of, just are seeing your work, is you're keeping the bones, and then you're redoing the inside to make it completely something crazy different. But that one was more of a real structural redo.
That one's going to be mixed use when it's done. So,
Yeah.
Residential on top and commercial on the bottom. It's right in the center of downtown with
Mm-hmm.
adjacent parking, which is a nice feature for a place like that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, keeping the bones. And this is just my personal opinion, but new architecture to me just feels like I'm looking at a CAD file.
Yeah.
I mean, you drive across the country and everything looks like Bed Bath & Beyond. And nothing against that, but for myself, I like restoring something that's already there and has features like back to the school building. Everywhere in there, the hallways are all terrazzo floors, beautiful limestone on the outside.
Yeah.
The kind of thing you could never, ever build again right now because it would be cost prohibitive, right?
Yeah, right.
But all that already exists, and all we got to do is clean it up. And so that's the kind of thing that when I can, that's my favorite kind of project to do.
Yeah, because I think, again, from what I've witnessed, right, you really keep in the character, because Wyandotte downtown, old buildings. I think one was a bank, if I'm recalling right. That was the vault, I think.
That was the vault, yeah.
And just, again, really keeping the character of the town, but revitalizing it, making it more inviting downtown, right? And I think one of them was a nightclub or a concert hall or something like that, if I recall. Like, you're on the corner. Like, it's just cool stuff to help, revitalizing downtowns. People sometimes think it's, what it's the city planners, or it falls on the city's shoulders to do that, but it takes actual for-profit people to actually go do those things.
Not to speak ill of cities, but left to their own devices, I don't know that they would pull that off.
Right. I mean, but I mean, it's funny because again, like for my town that I live in, right, there's some conflicting political things happening, and it's about major redevelopment. Oh, here it's Northville, right?
Okay.
Where it was the horse track, and there's all. I mean, trust me, there's way more things happening in there that are just nuts. But it turns into not just this huge master development, which obviously requires for-profit, but it's the ancillary things of how we're trying to run the city, and people redoing, trying to change the face of the city in good ways. Mm-hmm. And, it's so funny, the fingers go to whoever the public figure might be. They're the ones that help either push it forward or not. But again, someone has to have the vision and the pocketbook and the wherewithal to see it through.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, like Detroit doesn't happen just because we have a new mayor, right? What's happening in Detroit is a lot of people are making a lot of money, but they're putting a lot of money in, and there's a vision and a reason, and it's welcoming, just like you're saying.
Yeah. When I was living in Pennsylvania until 2010 for about 5 years. When I moved back to Detroit, at the time I planned on finishing at Penn State, where I was attending, and then going to law school. And I figured maybe I'd move to like Denver or Hawaii, somewhere where it's like, already has everything that I would want. Yeah. But my now wife and I made the conscious decision, well, let's go. Here was kind of the epicenter of the foreclosure crisis. And so I thought there was a lot of opportunity because of that.
Right.
But we thought, well, let's go somewhere and, plant our roots and build the kind of community we want to be in rather than, going to somewhere where it already existed. And that was what brought us back here. But yeah, it takes a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of vision, a lot of all of that. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, so I'm from Indiana, right? I'm from the Rust Belt. Other than a stint that I had professionally down in Florida, which actually the same time frame, is like 05 to 10. Other than that, my chops have been here in the Midwest. And when I was with GE, I was the district manager over, from Wisconsin really to Western Pennsylvania, Western New York. And so all of that swath I see, and I was traveling a ton. I see town after town after town, including my own that I grew up in, that had major industry that created that town. And then now it's a ghost town, right? Because that industry went away. So Cleveland's not dissimilar. Pittsburgh, right? They've all each had their own revitalization because what created them was industry. And then the industry went away. And far too often, those small towns and cities are just left to decay and rot.
Yeah.
And so I don't know all of the history of Wyandotte, but based on some of the experiences that I've seen or heard from you, like dilapidated buildings, unused, not being used for 15 years, and that's in the public sector, like a school. If someone doesn't take action, it's a dead town.
It's speaking specifically of Wyandotte, there's about 27,000 people that live there. In the last 8 years or so, in and around that area, we've redeveloped about 350,000 square foot of vacant or blighted or underutilized space, which is very impactful for a town like that. Mm-hmm. Because it's just like there are no longer any big, large vacant buildings waiting for something to happen, right? The last one we're starting on this month. So it's definitely changed the town. And I'm far from the only person who's done that, right? Like me and my team have done our part, but there are others as well. And it's been cool to see that turn around. On that same note though, a year or two from now, I think as a strategy, my business is going to have to change because it's like, whereas I'm not going to go recreate the same opportunities that I've had over the last 7 or 8 years to get here. That's the nature of things. I mean, only constant in life and businesses change, right?
Yeah. Actually you just took the question out of my mouth. Like what is a possibility?
I look to the marina that we bought and repositioned over the last year and a half as a example of the kind of thing I like to do where, I never had this happen because I buy vacant buildings and fix them up. Yeah. Where I show up day one and a bunch of people come in and make payments.
And there's cash coming.
This is revenue. I'm not supposed to see this till 2028. But that's been a nice experience. And that's rather than being construction intensive, there's elements of it, but it's management intensive. And I've liked that quite a bit, and I've learned a lot from it. So you can buy and sell businesses just the same way you can real estate assets. And now that I've dabbled some, I'm like, I like that too. So some of the direction that I change into will be more of that.
That's awesome. Because all the while, I mean, you still have assets that the way you've structured it can be cash flowing and can, you can have some wherewithal. Potentially, right, to see through things.
Yeah.
And again, if the right thing comes along, you can sell that too, right? That's the beauty. Is to your point, it could be a very quick shift and pivot for you.
Yeah.
If the right thing comes along, or
that's true. Yeah. A year from now, I'm going to take like a month off and just take my daughter somewhere and go hike in the woods, probably. But after that month is done, I'll get back into something else.
We'll shift to another cool thing that you do and you are, because I think maybe adventure and or non-traditional, or Becky, you said you're not a good employee. Probably I think traditional employment's not the bag for me either. But you also love to fly around in metal boxes with flaps on the ends.
Thankfully, it's not shaped like a box because I don't think that would be
all right.
Principle wouldn't work very well. No, it's a funny story. So I'm pretty big on personal autonomy and personal freedom, right? Like my parents split up when I was 11, and I've raised myself practically since then.
Yeah.
Probably part of the reason I'm an entrepreneur. So anyway, I have a 3.5-year-old daughter, and pretty much as soon as I found out my wife was pregnant, and it wasn't unplanned, I just had like a crisis, right? I'm like, this is such an impediment on my freedom. Like no way, right? So I went out and started taking flight lessons like that day. But I took it real seriously and never looked back. And so, maybe 4 or 5 months, I got my private pilot license. And I don't want to kill my friends or family, so I immediately went and got instrument rated right after that, which is just so much fun. And that was a little over 2 years, 2.5 years ago now. I finished my instrument rating. So yeah, I am a private pilot. I really enjoy it, and it's I think 3 most exhilarating things in my entire life has been the first time I kissed a girl, first time I did a backflip on a bike, and then my first solo in an airplane. You take off and you're like, well, shit, this thing only comes down one way and I gotta do it,
Yeah. Well, there's 2 ways. Multiple ways, but the way you're supposed to is nice and gentle. Yeah.
The preferred method.
Yeah. Because I just got to share with everyone. So in Vistage, we do a retreat up north, northern Michigan every year. It's in Petoskey. And, most of us are like, there's a handful of us that are like, hey, you want to just carpool up there? It's 3-hour, 4-hour drive, whatever it is. We're all going up roughly the same time. Some of us like to go golf a little beforehand, do whatever, and then we're coming back. So most of us are hopping in a car and going up. Ron just all of a sudden shows up and like, how'd you get here? Well, I flew up. Oh, well, how'd you get here? Well, I just put my bike in the back of the plane and I rode my bike here from the airport. There's a trail that goes around the lake. That's 20 miles. I don't even know how far it is.
Oh, it's not. It's like 7 or 8.
Okay, sure. It feels like, sure. The whole trail might be 20, but where you came from. So, his way of getting around and coming up there was, I'm going to fly a plane and then ride my bike to go there, right? So that's Ron Thomas in a nutshell. And I think...
Stupid. We already covered this.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out how to really get a story out that is hilarious without disparaging someone. So we don't have to say names, but we'll just say he has had passengers that may have had an evening ahead of them prior. And God bless you, Ron, for that ride that you gave that person who may have had their breakfast and lunch and dinner all come up on the ride back.
So I think most of the people in Vistage are wise enough to not fly in my plane with me anywhere. But there was an exception. So I was giving this person a ride home, from our meeting up in Petoskey. And we all had a long night the night before. I think braised short rib was plentiful. I recall from the smell the next day. So so it was a pretty smooth flight, but it was pretty turbulent at the end. And this person had an upset stomach, and they're a large person, so they couldn't actually get in the front seat next to me. If you're over 6'2" or 240 pounds, it's a tight squeeze. Mm-hmm. So he's in the back, and it's just he and I in the plane. And he starts to get a sick stomach, and he asks if I had a bag. And I'm like, yeah, we have bags underneath his chair. So he opens it up. It's a paper bag. He, puts it up in his mouth, yaks into it, right? But blows the thing to bits. So ends up with vomit all over himself on the plane and just everywhere. And in mine, it's the air circulates within the cabin. So it's like you can't open a window, right? Yeah. And I have a queasy stomach too. Turbulence doesn't bother me, right? I'm used to that. But I'm sitting there just smelling this, right? I had a long night myself, not that long. But, shaking, and I'm literally breathing through my mouth. So I breathe through my nose, I'm going to do the same thing. And this is coming in on approach when we're about to land. So anyway, I managed to get the thing down without throwing up myself. And we were there for 2 days or 3 days up in Petoskey, so it is lost on me why this person didn't have an extra set of clothes, but they didn't. So we opened the plane and they get out on the runway in their underwear because the rest of their clothes were covered in vomit. And they had to wait for their significant other to show up with a fresh set of clothes they bought at whatever store on the way to the airport. So
because it literally happened on the way down. So his wife was already on her way there. Anyway, I didn't. That wasn't that wasn't about your flying abilities. It was just the company you keep. No, I'm just kidding.
No, thank you. I think did a good job of managing the situation.
God bless you. I would have been raging. There are people who have been raging, and you were just like chuckling up, laughing. Like normally within our group, right? We're some self-deprecating, and we generally razz each other. I would have expected someone to text that picture out to everyone, and you wouldn't do it.
I'm going to show it to everyone in person.
I was like, everyone has to see this. Please send it. You're like, no, I'm not going to do that. So testament to you as a person. So going back to roles, right? You were saying, hey, why I got into flying. Because you're independent. You're thrill seeker. You love to try new things, etc. Right? You do have children.
Yes. I have a 3.5-year-old daughter and a almost 3-month-old daughter.
3-month-old daughter. Yeah. So how has that shifted? That from that moment when you're like, oh.
Well, I was terrified of it being an impediment on my freedom when my wife was pregnant with my first daughter. I've since learned that it's the best part of my life, not a impediment on my freedom at all, and I enjoy it quite a bit. And in fact, when she was 4 months old, that was like the day I got my private license. I rented a plane from the flight school and took her and my wife to Florida. Which, in retrospect, I probably could have used a little bit more experience flying before that. But anyway, yeah, no, it's having my daughters is the best part of my life. I really enjoy it. I have a mountain bike, same one that I take with me when I come up to Harbor Springs.
Yeah.
And I'll take my daughter all the time. I'll throw her in this backpack, right? And she's just, faster, Dad, faster. I'm like, I'm going faster. She's faster. Okay. And we'll go like up and down stairs all around town and stuff with her in a backpack. And like I don't know. I enjoy it. I really enjoy it.
That's awesome. And clearly, that's the fun part is when you can do the things you love to do and your kids are around it and they get just as thrilled. So you're going to have your hands full.
Yeah. I'm terrified of the influence I'm going to have in part, but hey, I guess it is what it is at this point.
No, absolutely. You along for the ride. That's awesome. Well, hey, what I like to do is I like to hear about mistakes, failures, miscues, something that whether personal or professional that you've had that made an impact on you, maybe you learned from, that maybe someone else could learn from.
Sure. This is, I was talking to my wife about this the other night, and I think in most moments in business there are a lesson, right? Biggest lesson I ever learned, my event business. I started it, with my life savings, 13 grand when I was 19 years old. Nearly 20 years after that, or 15 years after that, it went away, right? Like, luckily there wasn't a bunch of debt, so it wasn't a bankruptcy or whatever, but we should have won this big contract. Ended up in litigation with the National Guard because of it and won, but it was a fruitless effort. But anyway, but ultimately 15 years into all of the work and everything to put into that, I bought my partner out his half of it for $1 because that's what it was worth. And I made some money along the way and thankfully parlayed that into another career. But I learned that you can spend your time building something of value, or you can spend your time, building something of no value. And it's a pretty, it's like, would somebody buy whatever this is, a building, a business or something? Ultimately the answer was no. I've come to think of it as, we actually didn't even have a business. We just serviced the contract. And it was partly deliberate. We got out of having a more broad-based clientele because we went to the one that was really lucrative and we weren't willing to go back to the other way. Yeah. But the big lesson for me is whatever I work on going forward is going to be something that has value that will outlast, the moment. And so I only do that now. That's probably my working for 15 years to build something that's worth $1 is not fun. A lot of good times, but
that's called 15 years of what one of my good friends' dads used to call FE.
Okay.
It stands for the belligerent part of frickin' experience. Mm-hmm. That's what that's called. So you got 15 years of experience.
Yes. Like this is on Jimmy John's wall. Experience is what you get when you don't get what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So thank you for that. Because I think that many people don't check in on what that's just like, there's a business fundamental of, you have to have someone that wants what you're trying to sell. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And would they enjoy it? Now you're looking at it like, hey, not just in the moment. I don't want to sell a trinket one at a time or for that moment. You want something that has lasting impact with people.
Yeah.
So is it fair to say that you would welcome, because normally this is where I say, hey, how can people connect with you, come with you, but obviously you're very, very localized. You are deep into your own market and your own, in your own space with Wyandotte. But something tells me that maybe there's some peripheral cities around there that if something does pop up, that you'd welcome a phone call to talk about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I like talking real estate and real estate finance, that kind of stuff with people that, whether they have a question of me or an idea or whatever. I live and breathe it. I really enjoy it. So yeah, anybody, you can contact me that way, no problem. I'm on Instagram. RTBMX1 is my handle, or Ron at Rise Above Ventures. That's my email address. But yeah, all things real estate finance. I love having the conversation. So particularly your audience, feel free to reach out.
No, absolutely. Thank you. And I can attest to that. When I was trying to evaluate what to do with my building, you were the call, and it was, for those that don't do it daily, right? It seems like voodoo valuing, but you're like, yeah, it was, I just remember very clearly. It was like, what's this? What do you get a month? What do you do this? And he was like, boom, boom, boom. You like had, this is probably what it's worth or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So you helped me really come off the ledge and really figure out how I should move forward in a span of like 5 minutes. So.
It's almost the same thing. In business, you have EBITDA multiples, and that's what businesses trade at, as long as it's not like a sole proprietor thing. And in real estate, it's called net operating income, or NOI. And then they have their multiples based on the asset. But it's like the same thing. And it's crazy to me sometimes that like that transition takes 5 minutes to understand, but most people just don't know because they don't work on both sides of that evil coin.
Right. Those that know make the monies. Right? So.
At least try to.
Yeah. Well, awesome, Ron. Hey, man, this is a ball. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And I know the city of Wyandotte thanks you for all the efforts you do for them. So
yeah, sometimes.
Keep doing it.
Thanks, John.
All right, man.
Thanks for having me.
That's a wrap.
Thanks for tuning in to The Roll Call with John Glahn. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe for more insightful conversations. Remember, discovering your true role in life is a journey worth exploring each and every day. Until next time, keep defining your path and living your authentic self. This is John Glahn signing off.